Okay, so today on the Live on Form podcast, we are joined by Adri Brownlee. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Splendid. So we've there's a bit of a story around everything that you're doing, and I'm going to let you tell it because you'll tell it way better than I do. So you've got big plans. That's all I can say, and you expand on them. You tell us all the details.
Yeah, definitely big stressful plans. Big things for a small person. So no, I mean, I guess I'll begin with my project first. We can talk about when I was younger later. But yeah, the current project is to climb the 14 8,000 meter peaks. So that's there's 14 mountains higher than 8,000 meters in the world, and 8,000 meters is the sort of magic number because once you cross that sort of line, the altitude is when you get into the death zone, which is when your body is quite literally dying on you every step that you take, and every minute that goes by. So that's what makes it a bit special. When you go into sort of 7,000, 6,000 meters, there's hundreds of mountains out there, and quite a lot of them unclimbed as well. So that would make for maybe another cool project in the future. But yeah, the current one is that, and I'm going to be hopefully be the youngest, fastest, and first British female to do that, which would be pretty cool. And also, I might potentially be the youngest person in general in the world to do it as well. But I mean, yes, there's an aspect to it that it's for the records, but it's also, it just kind of fit in naturally. When I was going for this, I didn't even think about the records to begin with. I sort of just got told by my guide at the time, Nims guy. He just came into my tent. He's like, dude, you should try these 14 peaks because you'll probably smash it. Which is when I decided to leave university, call my parents and tell them I'm going to do this project. At first they thought it was absolutely bonkers, but it's not the first time that I've told them I'm going to go off and do something that they didn't have set in mind for me. But yeah, so I've done 3 of the 8,000ers already in 2020. So I started with Everest, the big expensive one, then went on to do Manaslu and Dhaulagiri. I was the youngest person ever to summit Dhaulagiri. And then this year, the plan is to do 6 more, which is all dependent on my sponsorships and funding. But, if all goes well, that's what I hope to happen. So I'm setting off in 2 days, literally, to Nepal to do 3 8,000ers back to back in spring season, which will be really tough, probably the toughest thing I've ever done. And I don't think many females have done that many 8,000ers in such a short period of time. So that'll be pretty cool. And then following that, I'll fly to Pakistan, do K2 Broad Peak, and then fly back to Nepal and maybe go for a Choyu winter ascent, which hasn't been done yet. So, and then 2023 will be 5 more, but that's so far in advance, I can't even think about it. I'll start stressing.
That's crazy. So the current record is like 30 years. I was going to say 30 days, 30 years and like 100 odd days, right? To do these 14 8,000 meter peaks.
So, well, the overall record is Nims Dyer's record, which is 6 months, 6 days, which
of course is what he's just done, literally.
Yeah, which I can't even fathom, to be honest. It's absolutely bonkers. Mostly because of the money. That's the big thing. I don't know how he got that sponsorship, but he was damn lucky because it's so expensive. But yeah, and then the current record for females is by Edurne Pasavan. She was 36 years old when she did it, and it took her 9 years in total.
Wow.
So yeah, I'll be 23 hopefully by the time I finish, which would be good.
Young.
It leaves me stuff to do in the future, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of where to next. It's a challenging one when you nail something that epic at the age of 23. And
yeah, I know. I kind of feel like I've stepped in hard a little bit here because I don't know what I'm going to do in the future. It has to get bigger and better. That's the problem. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
I just want to go back on something you said there because, I grew up in the Lake District. We've got we've got Scarfell Pike, probably the biggest sort of, we're not talking mountain, but sort of place where people go and they climb up an ascent, right? And when you say it's very expensive, you get the perception that, you just turn up at these places, you have all your kit, which obviously, you have to buy, and you've got your travel costs and things like that. But where does the cost come in for going up these peaks?
Well, yeah, good question. It's very political, I think. So a lot of it, the majority of it, goes towards the government. So in terms of Everest, the permit itself is probably the most expensive part of the whole expedition. That permit, where it goes, don't really know. Is it helping anyone? Probably not. Is it corrupt? Definitely. Like that's probably at the end of the day. But then you've got all the other factors. And if you're going with sort of a big commercial expedition group, which is what I did for Everest,
Yeah.
Obviously the Sherpas have to be paid, the porters, the kitchen staff, then sort of fixing ropes, the tents will be put in there, the food, everything will, whatever you pay will contribute to that expedition, and everything is so expensive. Even just the oxygen masks themselves are like 2 or 3 grand each, and they don't last very long, maybe 1 or 2 expeditions. So it just, it piles up. I mean, the cost just, like, pardon the pun, but it's like a mountain of money, and it just keeps going up and up. But yeah, I mean, when you're doing sort of solo expeditions, it gets a bit cheaper, but it's still so expensive. Permits, flights, hotels, food, paying whoever you're climbing with as well. But yeah, it's a shame, because when you think about it, it should be free, really, like, to go out there and just climb a mountain. But then there's so many things that you forget about, that you have to put in money in and invest in. But that's, at the end of the day, you just have to get on with it, and hopefully.
I'm guessing you're on someone's property, right? In many respects, right?
Yeah.
So and I'm guessing, is it the sort of more mainstream, and it always seems a bit bizarre talking about a mountain being commercial, but I guess with the exposure that Everest has got over the years, K2's got over the years, are they the two big sort of expensive ones?
Yeah, K2 and Everest are definitely the top two out there, just because they're so commercialized now that they have to ramp up the prices, or else everyone would go there, and then that's when you get the big problems with just overcrowding of people. You can't handle it. You can't handle the rubbish, the food, the queues. It explodes. Yeah.
And I remember in the recent documentary, the 14 Peaks with Nims, and he referred to literally these lines and queues of people waiting to get to the summit. And it was mad. There was a shot, I remember, where it kind of panned out, and it was sort of this zigzag sort of path where there was just people lined up. It was mad.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the photo, when that was taken, the year that it was taken, was when Everest, during the climbing season, there was only one weather window the whole season.
Right.
And what happens is that everyone that is at base camp will go for the summit push on that day. And so there was maybe 200 climbers going for the summit push on that particular day. And so there you go, there's a queue, because at that point, you're at the Hillary step, you're going so slow. And some people are more experienced than others, they take longer. Just to take out their Jumar or something will take like half an hour. So yeah, it's sort of a big mess up there when that happens. But I mean, luckily, so last year when we went, there were 3 weather windows, so it was kind of more dispersed. There were groups, maybe like 40, 50 people going up, and we didn't have one queue, we didn't have to wait at all. So it was literally just our team at the summit, which was really cool. It was quite peaceful, because I went in mind thinking, oh my god, there's gonna be queues all the way up, I'm gonna freeze to death, something's gonna happen. But it just depends on the weather window, really.
Yeah. So throughout that season, there's a number, and I'm guessing this is the case with all of the mountains, right? So there's just windows, which I'm guessing are they more precision than they used to be? Because back in the day, I guess people went up almost blind, right? You go up, you you take a look around and think, is it good enough weather for me to go? And I mean, we're talking, years and years ago, but now I'm guessing it's a precision exercise where you've got weather warnings, you've got forecasts, you've got,
yeah. I mean, it's a science, like this. People, maybe expedition guides will have 3 different forecasts coming in from, Switzerland, Germany, Nepal, all these places. And each day, because I mean, I've done a bit of this myself. I was helping the guys who are on the Choyu winter expedition just a couple of months ago. And I was getting weather forecasts in that I'd have to sort of go through, communicate with them, and basically tell them that they shouldn't go up, even though they wanted to go up anyway. So I was like, you know what, if something happens, it's my fault in a way. But yeah, I mean, you get so many different forecasts coming in, and you have to compare it to what you're seeing during the day, which one's the most accurate. But I mean, 30, 40, 50 years ago, it was a whole different story. It was kind of just, the jet stream is going to come in at some point. Last couple of days have been good, take a gamble, go for it. But, you can also play that game now. You can go more pure style, but I don't think anyone does that. I think everyone has at least like 3 or 4 forecasts coming in, because that's the most dangerous part of mountaineering is the weather. So if you can avoid something that you can control, then why not?
Have you got caught in any sticky situations with weather?
So on Dalagiri we got caught on a storm, which we didn't really see coming. I mean, we knew that the weather was a bit sketchy on that day. Everyone had sort of grouped together. There was only 5 of us on the mountain at that time. Everyone had, packed up and gone home because they were like, the weather's just absolutely awful up there. I don't know what you guys do. You're bonkers. So we were the crazy ones that kept going up. But Nims, I know, always has it sort of under control. And there's always, plan B, plan C. So I kind of put my full trust in him. I was like, okay, it says 70, 80 kilometers per hour wind, but we'll carry on, we'll go up. And in the end, it was more like 120. And it was pitch black. I mean, like eerie, because there was nothing else there. And all you could see was, a couple of head torches from our group. We all sort of piled together, trying to protect ourselves from the wind. And I stupidly put my warm, dry gloves inside my backpack instead of in my down suit, because it was just so cold and so windy. You couldn't take anything off. You can take your backpack off because it would just fly away. And so my hands got pretty badly frost nipped. I couldn't feel them at all. So I was holding the Jumar, which is a device you use to sort of pull yourself up on the rope. It takes a bit of weight off everything. And my hand was wrapped around the Jumar. It's like a small handle. And it got to a point where I was like holding the Jumar, but I wasn't actually gripping it. It was just my hand was stuck in that position, and like, I couldn't move it anywhere. So I like got it out, like trying to maneuver out, and my hands were literally stuck like this. They were frozen solid. And I was like, shit, like this is the end. I've got frostbite. I'm going to lose both my hands. Can't climb anymore. My life is over. All these thoughts in about 5 seconds. And then Nims died, just like turned me around because he was behind me. And he looked into my eyes. And obviously I was just staring into space at this point. I was gone. And he just screamed in my face. He's like, if you don't fucking move now, you're going to die. I was like, oh shit, I've got to get down. And that's when something just clicked inside. And then had to clap my hands like every 2 minutes. I was clapping hands, warming them up, putting them in Nims's armpits, which I'll never forget. That was disgusting. It was like, but you have to do it to survive. And then in the end, we got back down to the closest camp. But yeah, we were literally sat in the tent after that moment, just in complete shock. Like everyone was silent, no one was saying anything. We're like, that was stupid. That was really bloody stupid. But it was a learning curve, and now I know not to put my gloves in my backpack, that's for sure. And also, if the weather says it's going to be bad, it is going to be bad.
So when you're prepping for these things, so this was the push, which when you say about the push, that's 8,000 plus, right? Are we talking? So you kind of camp at 8,000 and you stay around 8,000, and then the final push is to go beyond that, because obviously that's that area you stated as the death zone, right?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on the mountain. So on Everest, for example, the highest camp is higher than most other mountains. It's at about 7,800 Camp 4, which is, you know, one of the deadliest camps in the world, because you're pretty much in the death zone. But like on Dhaulagiri, for example, we set off from Camp 2, which is about 6,400 meters.
Right.
So the day is long, because you're going from 6,400 all the way to 8,100 in one push. So that took us 32 hours in total from Camp 2 to summit back to base camp, which was, yeah, it was pretty crazy. But usually the lower you sleep, the better, because the higher you go, you just can't sleep, and you need sleep to regain energy, and to get back into that rhythm and cycle. As soon as you're losing, you know, 3-4 days of sleep consecutively, that's when it gets really bad and really uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I guess that, you know, it damages the experience, I guess, does it?
Yeah, I mean, the experience, I mean, none of it's pretty.
Well, I was going to say, it's not one of them things that you remember at the end and go, wow, that was pleasant. It was really enjoyable.
Maybe like 2 months later, when your memory sort of selects the nice bits, and all the bad parts go down the toilet. But yeah, no, during the climate, it's not fun. And you do question why you do it, but you know,
it's crazy, isn't it? It's like a completely different mentality. It's you know, and ultimately you know, at the end of it, you're ticking a box. You're ticking a personal box. You're ticking a box of, you know, an achievement, and a box that there's very few people in the world have ticked, right. And to state that it's just not fun, it's not enjoyable, it's horrendous, it's this, that, the other, is just, and then to continue to then do that again and again and again. What is it that drives that, do you think?
I mean, to be fair, I enjoy the pain of it, you know. That is what motivates me and gets me up there, is like thinking like what a huge achievement this is going to be, because the achievement is going through that suffering. There's a whole sort of like stoicism to it. It's like, you know, pain is the good part, and it's what's going to get you through. So like I've always enjoyed that since I was young. I was, you know, it started when I was 9 years old. I did the 3 peaks. And when you're 9 years old, the 3 peaks is not fun. But at the end of it, I loved it. And I loved the excitement of knowing what I've just been through, and no one else my age has ever done this before. So I felt unique, and I felt, you know, powerful, and it gave me that confidence boost. So yeah, there's something about it that makes me want to go back. But then there's also the other aspect of it where, you know, you're at base camp, you've got the friendships, the bonds that you create, and it's another level. You know, you're living with people that you, like a few hours ago, you'd never met in your life. Suddenly you're sleeping together, eating together, 24/7 together for 2 months. And you know, it's all these people from different walks of life. So that aspect of it is amazing, and I love it. And I love hanging out with the Sherpas and my climbing family now. But yeah, I don't know, it's just a mixture of all these things. Like, mountaineering is such a crazy sport. You get to travel, you get to find out about new cultures and everything, and it's these little things that bring you back. But ultimately it's the achievement and the pride of what you've just been through. Like, that's why things like Spartan races, Ironman, like, they're all disgusting. No one wants to do this, but it's like the feeling at the end that you get is so addictive. And everyone wants to go back, and these industries have just fucking blown up in the last few years.
Yeah, it's crazy. So on the agenda, you've got the 3. You've got the I'm going to try and pronounce them here. It's Nachanjuga. That's horrendous, isn't it?
Right vowels, wrong order.
Lotzi, is that right?
Yeah, Kanchenjunga, Lhotse, and Makalu.
Makalu, yeah, and that's all planned in spring, right? So I think you announced that on your social, didn't you?
Yeah,
that's all pending.
Set off April 2nd, and then bash them all out, and hopefully finish beginning of June.
bash them all out. It's you know, we're talking about 8,000-meter peaks here, but yeah, we'll just casually go along. So, and the intent is to finish all three of those in what duration?
So probably 3 months in total, I think it'll take. Yeah. So the first one, Kanchenjunga, will be the long one because we have to go through the whole acclimatization process, you know,
Right.
where you go up from base camp to like camp 2, deposit equipment, go back down, you know, all that shebang, and then wait for a summit window. Whereas when we get to Makalu and Lhotse, it would just be base camp straight to summit when it's good weather, and that's it,
Okay.
job done.
And that variance just depends on how, I guess, the mountain's set up, or you know, where the base camps are, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously there's some of these are kind of in the middle of nowhere, right? You've really got to travel into the depths of countries to get to them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so Kanchenjunga is, I mean, they all have their set treks up to base camp. So most of the 8,000ers have like that commercial trekking route that everyone sort of does. You know, like you can do the Annapurna circuit or the Manaslu base camp trek. And so all of them are pretty accessible. But with the plan that we're doing, we'll trek to Kanchenjunga base camp, which is a bit more rural than the others, like less known. And then that will take us about a week. Then from once we've summited Kanchenjunga, we'll do helicopter flights from base camp to base camp, just to save time and save acclimatization and get there as quickly as possible. Because there's, I mean, really, there's no point doing the base camp trek again for each mountain. It just wastes time, wastes money, because you have to pay for all the hotels, the food. You know, it's another week on top of what you're already doing. Like, yeah, it's not the most sort of eco-friendly or like pure way to do it, but at the end of the day, once you get to base camp, that is where you start the climb. So yeah, it's just the speediest, most efficient way of doing it.
And when you say you don't have to climatize again, I'm guessing obviously because you reach that level, right, and then you just go sort of vertically across and horizontally across, sorry, and you know,
Yeah, so I mean,
you maintain that altitude sort of climatization that you've already had from that first mountain, right?
yeah. So you maintain that so once you've done an 8,000-meter peak, you're acclimatized for about maybe a month after it, 4 weeks. And so your body will continue acclimatizing up to about 7,500 meters. After that point, it's just you're just surviving. There's no more acclimatizing to do. Like your body can't adapt to that altitude. There's no wildlife up there, nothing for a reason. So yeah, so it's getting to that sort of 7,000-meter mark, and then that's where you reach your peak adaptation, and you save that for maybe 4 weeks. So yeah, that's why doing as many as you can, as many 8,000ers back to back, is so much more efficient than doing one, going back home, and then the next season coming back and going through that whole acclimatization process again. But yeah, I mean, there's so much science behind it that's still not 100% there. But yeah, no, it's interesting as well.
Cool. So tell me about the dangers of what you face. So, you know, obviously everybody to some degree probably understands about the oxygen, the fact that you're breathing very thin air. It's, you know, it's not sustainable. But what are the other dangers of climbing? I mean, everybody's watched movies about, you know, everybody's probably seen K2 and seen Everest and seen, you know, Cliffhanger and various others, which I'm sure some are sort of true to fact on certain aspects, but I'm sure other ones make you cringe. And then obviously recently people have watched 14 Peaks with Nims, and which again I felt maybe didn't do it justice in that it didn't reflect really the true dangers of what was going on. It was very, you know, there was some elements of there in there where you know your toes are curling up and you're thinking, oh my God, you know, this is going to happen and this is going to happen. But I think there's it's probably a little bit more dangerous than that maybe reflected, again, just off the people that I've talked to. But what are the dangers for you as a climber that you face every day?
Yeah, I mean, mountaineering is just it's one of those sports where it's, you know, there's a lot of luck involved. And I think Nims was, you know, fairly lucky with weather and, avalanches, etc. And I mean, he did touch on, some points, where he had to do rescues because people had, collapsed from exhaustion or had a stroke on the mountain, or things that you just wouldn't see coming. Underlying health conditions that you maybe never knew you had could suddenly arise because of the altitude, and your body's under so much strain. So people have heart attacks, strokes, clots. There's one aspect of it. Obviously, usually that's like older people. And then there's the sort of weather and the nature side of things. So there's earthquakes, as there was an earthquake on Everest that
Wow.
killed, many, many people. And no one obviously saw it coming. And then there's avalanches. So on Annapurna, for example, avalanche risk is huge. So like I think it's like 25% of people die on Annapurna, and most of it's from avalanches, because they're just constantly coming down at you, and it's unavoidable and it's unpredictable as well. Obviously there's like things that you can do to, is the snow set in this way, or how old is the snow, blah blah blah, but at the end of the day, it could happen to anyone. So yeah, there are loads of dangers, and then you have the dangers also of ropes coming undone. So when they're fixed, a rock could hit the where the rope is fixed, and then that's it. You attach to it, you put some weight, and you're gone. Or rock fall on K2 when we went in winter. I went up to Camp 1, and it is just constant rock fall the whole way up, and it's so like it's scary because the rocks will come down and you don't know where they're going to bounce. So 1 second it's about 20 meters to your right or something, and then the next bounce is hitting your helmet, and could knock you out. So yeah, there's just so many things that you can't control on the mountains, and illness as well, altitude sickness. It could hit anyone. It hit me on Manaslu out of nowhere. I got HAPE, high altitude pulmonary edema, from having a shower at base camp, which is really pain in the ass because I had to go all the way back down to the village and take antibiotics for a week, and then play catch up with the whole team because they'd already done a rotation and acclimatized. So I missed all of that. But yeah, there's so many factors, but that's also what makes it exciting. It's not just you can go up there and plan everything. And for people who have like OCD or plan freaks, this is like the worst sport ever, because like don't even think about a plan. It's just you go there and you go with the flow. But yeah, that's us. Yeah, there's just so many factors.
I think that's a considerably better reflection of all the things that could potentially happen. So you said whilst having a shower, what,
Oh, yeah,
what
yeah.
happened there? So
Because, well, I'm a girl and I have long hair and it doesn't dry. So I had the
okay,
shower.
right.
Yeah, I had the shower in the afternoon because we'd been trekking in. I didn't have a shower in the village, stupidly. And I got to base camp. I was like, that's it. I just want to have a shower and then go to bed. And yeah, my hair didn't dry. I was just, soaking wet. It was really cold and miserable at base camp that year. There was like no sun at all. And so when you have a shower, the best thing is to have sun, banging onto your tent and just heating it up, and it's like a sauna in there, and you can dry pretty quickly. But we have no sort of electricity or generators that can power a hairdryer, for example. So you are literally just letting your hair air dry, which for me will take like 3 days. So I got really ill, like sore throat started, and then I woke up in the middle of the night and I had liquid had filled my lungs. So I was like gurgling. So every breath it would just gurgle. And I'd literally move. I'd be lying on my side in bed, and then I'd sit up and I could feel the water like moving downwards. It was really weird. But at that point, I knew I had to get down straight away. Because usually, if I get ill, I'm the type of person that keeps it to myself because I hate like anything to do with illness, doctors, medicine.
Yeah.
I hate that stuff. I get freaked out. So for me to actually say something and be like, I need to get down, meant that it was pretty bad. And I mean, luckily it went away, because usually HAPE, you have to go to the hospital, get a ejection, get the air, the liquid suctioned out. But for me, just antibiotics work. And I think it's better for mental power as well, because I was like, I'm not going home. I'm doing this, I'm getting better, and I'm going up there. So yeah, combination. But
okay, well, let's backtrack a little. So you said about doing the 3 peaks when you were 9, which is remarkable. It's, you know, as a 9-year-old, I'm sure there'd be very few 9-year-olds would get more than about 100 meters up and say, why are we doing this? And I want to go home and blah, blah, blah. So tell me about where all this came from. Where did all this start? Where did this love for climbing start? You know, is there mountaineering in the family? You know, where did it all come from?
all of it came from my dad. So he got me into the whole world of sports when I was, when I was 8 years old, maybe. So we would go on runs every morning together. We'd go to Box Hill and, you know, do hill sprints in Richmond Park. And so it all stemmed from that. And he was always really into my school sports as well. So I'd try out for every team. And actually, I'd never get in any of them. I don't know why, but I was that one kid that tried out and never got in, which was, you know, a hard pill to swallow. But and then at 9, he sort of suggested that we do the 3 peaks. And we did it the first time. And I did Snowdon scaffold bike, and then we got to Ben Nevis, and I got hypothermia halfway up. And he turned to me and he was like, Adri, you can, like, we're 200 meters from the summit. You can keep going, but you are really ill right now, or you can, you know, go home and we'll try again later. And so at 9 years old, I made the very good decision to go back home, even though I was crying my eyes out. My mom's gonna be so upset with me. I've let everyone down. But that was like the moment that my dad knew. He was like, well, you've got the right mindset to do mountaineering when you're older, because that's the biggest killer, is people who just keep going and they're blinded by this summit, and they'll do whatever it takes to get there, when really maybe they're, you know, dying as they say the words that they want to keep going. So that was when I knew that I had good decision making skills. Even though I was 9 years old, probably didn't know what I was doing or saying. And then we went back 2 months later, and then we did it successfully in 22 hours. But we did have a Porsche at the time, so that saved us a few hours, instead of one of those sort of vans that go at like 20 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So I think that helped. But no, it was really fun. And when I got back at primary school, they asked us to do one of those sort of typical homeworks where you write a letter to your future self of what you want to do when you're older. And I wrote down that I want to be famous for summiting Everest, and inspire other young people to follow their dreams. And I still have it somewhere. I think it's in the wall in our bathroom or something. So yeah, it was a little typed up letter that I wrote when I was 9. And then obviously at 20 years old, I achieved that dream, which is sort of, you know, the main message that I try to put up there now when I do like talks at schools with little kids. You know, remember what your dreams are right now, because they could be so valuable in the future, and we often just forget about it. We get so caught up in, you know, what's happening now and in the modern day, that we forget what we used to dream about, and it's still, you know, possible. So yeah, that was kind of where it all stemmed. And then from then on, it's just always been endurance sports, pushing myself to limits, doing, you know, Spartan race with my dad, doing Welsh 3000s, the fan dance with weighted packs, all these little things. And then the 7 summits as well, we had a bash at, but I got bored halfway through. I was like, this is not for me. I'd rather do the 8000ers. They seem a little bit more fun. But yeah, it's always been part of my life. I think it's just always been in my blood to do these kind of things. And I've been lucky enough to have amazing sponsors who have helped me fund these extremely expensive expeditions. Because without them, you know, I'd be going to university and probably, you know, depressed, to be honest, because, you know, this is just what I was meant to do, and go out there and travel and climb, and hopefully inspire other people as well to follow their goals as well.
That's, I mean, you go back and you said about the sports teams, but you know, maybe you just didn't find the thing that was your thing, right? And obviously there's a lot out there. I mean, you know, there's so many sports and so many activities that are available to everybody. And I guess school is very, you know, it's team sports, it's individual sports, just dotted around, and very conventional sports, right? And maybe that just wasn't your thing. Maybe you just didn't find it, and blah blah blah. And like you say, the decision making aspect of it is a biggie, right? It's whether you're led by your ego or whether you're led by your head, and there's a fine line there, and I think that's true in all sports. There's a point there where people have got to go, look, you've got to back off. And from my background training people, when people are getting, they're on the verge of an injury, just like you said, you're on that verge of doing yourself some serious damage, or even in your case, killing yourself, right? And it's that being able to step back and go, look, it's time for me just to take a break and just take 5 and then readdress it at a later date. And I think that's, I think for anybody to be able to do that and to master that, certainly at your age, is pretty damn impressive. Because it's, I know that when I was 18 and 19, I would push through injuries and carry on playing and patch things up and blah blah blah. So it's a huge part of it. But yeah, and it's, to find that sort of thing that is your thing. Going back on the letter that you wrote to yourself, you hear so many people do things like that. We all do them in school, but I think a lot of the time they're sort of blown out of the water very quickly by people. And I was curious, was there any feedback from that when you did that?
I don't remember, because honestly, I don't even remember writing it. My mum just pulled it out like maybe a year ago, like right after I climbed Everest. She just pulled this out from the storage. She's like, look what I just found. Like, this is you when you were in year like 2 or something. I was like, damn, like I genuinely don't remember writing that at all. And I'm sure I probably got some funny looks. And that, yeah, it's so common these days. Yeah, everyone wants to be astronaut or footballer, and if you do really badly want it, it's not impossible. You can do it, and it's just a case of whether your goals are still the same when you're older, because obviously people grow out of it. But yeah, you should just explore every avenue, really, is what I try to say to everyone. Because I went from doing this sort of the 3 peaks thing to doing taekwondo to doing ballet to all these different sports. And taekwondo I thought was my thing at the time. I did it for 10 years, so I got pretty deep into that. But then I just knew after, I was like, I've got to give this up, because it's just not me. And that was another thing that my parents always, like, they weren't very happy about, is that I changed sport every 5 minutes. And I just change everything every 5 minutes. So
normal with kids, no?
Yeah, I know, but it's frowned upon. But it shouldn't be, because if you have the opportunity to do as many things as you can, then do it. It doesn't matter if you don't stick at it. Sticking at things is it's a good characteristic to have, and being persistent and resilient. But sometimes you just got to try out different things and go out there. And when I started university, well, originally I wanted to do medicine. Then I changed my mind to doing like psychology or something. And then I changed my mind to sports science. And then I got to university. I was like, no, I don't even want to do university. And my parents were like, what is wrong with you? You're just wasting our money. I'm like, well, I just can't stick at it, and I'm going to keep going until I find that thing. And now I have. And I'm so grateful that I did get out of university and I followed this path. But yeah, I mean, it's a scary plunge to take sometimes. And I think people get scared of that. They have a big fear of making big life decisions and big changes, which they shouldn't be. You only live once. Sometimes you just got to take the plunge.
And it's support mechanisms, right? I mean, even though you said, what are you doing? Your parents are piping up, which I think is a normal reaction for any parent. I'm a parent, and there's certain things where, like you said about the taekwondo, you've done it for 10 years. You're probably on the cusp of mastery there. You're getting very, very good at something. To then all of a sudden go, no, this isn't for me anymore. I'm going to move on to something else. And I get why a parent would kind of push back a little on that. But you've obviously, had support your parents throughout all of this. And whether there's little throwaway comments that they make along the way, which I think is just a parenting thing.
Yeah.
Where you say, what are you doing? Is this really what you want? But I think that's just it's almost like a double check, right? We just want to make sure that our kids are making the right decision for themselves, instead of just going off on a whim and thinking, I'm going to do this. And I think, especially when there's huge amounts of money involved, right? there's, you've got to beg those questions. And it's like hobbies, there's a lot of hobbies out there that are very expensive. I was into racing motorbikes when I was a kid, and we stopped doing it because it was just too expensive. It just wasn't feasible. So I think, having that support and those support mechanisms along the way, I think are critically important.
Definitely. Yeah, I've been like blessed with my parents, because they're my number one fans, and obviously without them I wouldn't be able to do any of this. And obviously I put those things out there, and I say I want to change this, I want to do this, but I feel like I also had the proof and the reason to show that this isn't a huge plunge, and I'm actually going to work hard at this, or I'm going to do mountaineering, I'm going to do the 14 peaks, but I'm also going to get my own funding, my own sponsorships, and I'm not going to ask for any of your money, because that's not the way I want to do it. And I mean, they helped me out financially with Everest, because it was my first one. It was sort of the big one to kind of tick off, and from then on is when you can get sponsors, because you can't go into this saying I have a dream of climbing.
I'm going to do this. Never
have done an 8,000er, because they'll just look at you like you're a moron. But yeah, I mean, I've been super lucky in that aspect, and obviously I can understand that some people will never get that opportunity to, say, climb Everest, for example, because it's stupidly expensive, and it's crazy. But there are other options anyway to get started. You can do loads of other mountains that are, you can do K2, for example, for maybe $5,000, which, if you have some of the resources, you can sort of conjure up that money if you really want to, from sponsors as well. It's just about hard work, like really hard work, as sponsorship is not fun, and yeah, it's not an easy job.
So do you find a lot of people, that you see there, they just do one mountain and that's it? Because there's this depiction, and I can't remember what it was, the film I watched, where there was some odd people who just sort of paid to, I've always wanted to just do Everest, or I've always just wanted to do K2, and then you start to get into the less well-known sort of mountains and peaks. And do you often find people who are there who have just that one intent, or is it they have that one intent, they do it, and then they're like, right, I'm now going to do another, and then I'm going to do another, and then I'm going to do another? Because I can imagine it's something that's very addictive, right?
Yeah, it's super addictive.
And there's that elation and all of that stuff that I can't even contemplate that you experience when you're at the peak. And one of these things is, even seeing what you can see, and it just, and the piece of it, I guess, is, there's you and what, 4 others you said at the peak of the last mountain, and I guess that must be pretty spectacular, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, you're never going to have someone who just does one. That's what I tell everyone who's like doing their first peak, or like, I'll tell them this is definitely not the end. You're going to
see you next season.
I've seen it with my dad as well. He did Amadablam with me a few months ago, maybe 4 months ago, and he's just caught the bug again, and he just wants to go back, and he wants to do Everest next year. And my mum was like, no way, this is not fair. So yeah, you catch the bug pretty quickly. It's dangerous.
Well, I don't think it'll be the sort. I'm horrendous with heights. I'm not good with heights. So there's certain aspects of it when your feet are on the ground that appeal to me. But then maybe I've just got this Hollywood depiction of what climbing up a mountain looks like. But when you're climbing across these sheer drops and things like this, that just does not. It does nothing for me.
Yeah. If you have a fear of heights, it's maybe not the sport for you. But I mean, you can always get over those fears anyway, and it's about just putting yourself in those situations to get over them. Because I have seen people on our Amadablam expedition who they'd never even climbed a mountain before, and they got to the summit and back down, and they were scared. We were doing our training days at on the ground, maybe 5 meters maximum from the ground, and they were really petrified. They couldn't abseil, and we're thinking, well, you're about to go do this at 7,000 meters with drops on either side. But they did it in the end, and you just push through. And I think it was the excitement of summiting and having that in mind that got them through it. Because just going doing like, fun fair rides, for example, there's no achievement in that. It's just you have to do it, and you have to, get through being scared of heights. But when you have something to climb for or to achieve, then those fears are brushed off. They're secondary.
I'll take your word for that. It's that freezing thing. I have a horrendous memory of when I was about 12 years old, and we did some climbing in the Lake District, and I froze about halfway up a cliff face, and I just remember clinging onto this rock for dear life, and not wanting to go up and not wanting to go down, and blah blah blah. So maybe if I could just shirk that memory, I'll be all right. But anyways, tell me about training for mountaineering. Obviously there's acclimatization, there's altitude training, there's, which we've had guests on actually talking about altitude training, and they actually did some work with Nims for his prep. So what does training look like for you? Obviously there's huge mental aspects to it, but what about the physical aspect?
So I've been training like maybe 6 days a week since I was 16. Just full on. I've always loved training. It's part of my life. It's part of my routine. I can't go without it. My dad and I, we have the same sort of gene of like obsession. Like if we don't train for one day, we're moody for the rest of the day. Like that's how it works. But yeah, I mean, currently I do 6-7 days a week. So I'll do 2 hours of cardio usually in the morning. So that would be either like Stairmaster for an hour with backpacks, and then cycling, so like spin. And then I'll do a lot of swimming as well, because swimming's really good for breath work. So a lot of underwater stuff, trying to do as many laps of the water as I can. And then, pretty much whatever my body is asking for, I just got a package for you now. Whatever my body's asking for, I'll do. So I don't have like a training plan per se. And then I'll do like resistance training as well in the afternoon, about an hour of resistance training on a very specific part. So a lot of lower back work, because for me the worst is carrying heavy packs on the mountain and going back down as well. You're hopping down, you've got the weight on your back hitting your lower back every time, and that's the weakest point for me. And then a lot of like upper arm training as well. I tend to stay away from like legs, because the cardio stuff that I do trains my legs. And I find that if I do leg resistance training, it just messes up the rest of my week of cardio, because I can't run or I can't do anything. So yeah, and then on the weekend, my father and I will still train together, and we'll do something in like Box Hill, maybe doing like a 10K fell running, or training with 20 kg backpacks, going up and down, 1 kilometer long stairs, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I've been doing intense training since I was 16 years old, and I just love it. I love being fit. It makes me feel good. And my dad's exactly the same. So we've kind of just egged each other on this whole time. But I mean, recently he got COVID maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, and he's still got sort of long-term, asthma and stuff. So he's pretty angry at the moment because I'm doing my training. He's sort of stuck at home, not being able to do anything, which I feel so bad for him, because it's just part of our DNA is to have to get up in the morning and train. So that helps with everything. Because if I didn't want to, mountaineering would be a lot harder, because you have to be fit. You have to be really physically fit.
Yeah. So and nutrition. Tell me about nutrition. Is that how does that work for you? Is that enormous amounts of calories? Is that No,
not really. I mean, I've been like really unlucky with my genes. I have a really slow metabolism. So anything, if I'm like 10 calories over what I should be, I'll stack on the weight instantly. It's really irritating. So I just eat really healthy. I've never had a diet. I've never followed a plan as well. It's the same as my training. I just go with the flow and see where it takes me. But yeah, I eat really healthy. I have my mum's Spanish, so very Mediterranean, a lot of seafood, a lot of vegetables. So yeah, I mean, I love my food as well. So I love cooking myself. Everything I eat, I cook myself. And then if we do go out, then I'll still choose the healthiest options. And then once I'm on the mountain, I mean, I'd say it's a different story, but still, you don't eat that much because you just don't want to. Your body doesn't really, like, you feel you're trying to acclimatize, you're going through, like, you're expending, thousands of calories a day, but your body's working so hard that your digestive system is just, it's secondary. So you just don't want to eat because it just doesn't go down, and it doesn't stay down either. The likelihood is that 7,000 meters you're going to be throwing up whatever you eat. So yeah, I mean, at base camp, I'll eat as much as I can. Like, that's when you carb load, and they'll give you food. Like, they're literally stuffing your face every hour. Like, here's pizza, here's breads, here's buns, here's like chocolate crisps, and you're just like, on Everest, I put on 10 kilos after the expedition. I came home and I was 10 kilos heavier. I was like, how did this happen? It's because we ate so much at base camp and we were there for 2 months solid.
So that was on the way down, was it?
Just over the whole thing.
I was going to say, because 10 kilos is a good amount of weight to actually then have to go vertically with. It's that's a lot of weight.
Yeah, I know. I just don't know what happened. I mean, some of it was water weight, like water retention. But
I would imagine you probably, do you get a bit of fluid retention? I would imagine at altitude, yeah.
I think so, yeah. And also you're drinking a lot of water out there. You're drinking like 8 liters a day. It's a lot. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how I got 10 kilos heavier, but I did, and it was noticeable as well. I was like, when I came home, I was like, well, if you actually just climb Everest, or because at the very beginning when I started climbing journey,
I think your answer to that is just, I've just been up Everest.
Yeah.
I think that's all you need to answer. You just go, I've just been up Everest.
Yeah.
What have you been doing?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Anybody's in a position to comment on anything at that point. In fact,
I mean, once I got home, I found that everyone would ask me questions about everything except for the climb, which I mean, is kind of irritating, but that's society these days. There's a lot of jealous people out there as well. I lost a lot of friends after that expedition.
I think that's just the nature of it, isn't it? You're doing something that other people only ever aspire to, right?
I mean, you find out who your true friends and family are when you do these kind of things, because the true ones will just appreciate everything you've just done. The fake ones will suddenly stop replying to you, or they don't want to hear about it. And like, that's why the family that I've made in Nepal, the mountaineering community, has become my closest family, because they understand it. And it's sometimes it's hard for people here to understand.
And it's on a tangent, isn't it? It's a bit like going to a dinner party where you do your job or whatever it might be is something that nobody can relate to, so nobody asks questions about it. Being in the industry I'm in, I go to a dinner party, everybody's bashing my ears about what should I be doing to get this, and what should I be doing to do this, and blah blah blah. And I guess it's people don't want to make an idiot of themselves by asking what would maybe be a ridiculous question, probably wouldn't be, but the overall experience of it all, I think a lot of people will have their perception of what it's like. I have a perception of what it's like. Fortunately, I get to talk to people like you who can set me right and tell me what the actual experience is like, because that's probably my closest experience to it. I've never been up Everest. I've never been up. I've got a perception of what that is and what it takes. And obviously, it's you can only watch so many documentaries and get an overview of what it's like. But when you get to speak to people about it, it's you can really dig deeper and see what's what. So would you say, is it more of a mental, or is it more of a physical thing? Is it more of what's the most challenging aspect? Is it that voice in your head that's saying, stop doing this? Because, you're going against physiology here. Your body's saying, no, don't do this. And you're saying, you're kind of overriding that constantly, going, I'm going to carry on going. Thank you. But I'm not interested right now. So I'm going to keep going. So is it more a physical thing? Is there a point there where your body's giving up and you're unable to move as efficiently as you could, and everything's heavy and everything's, or do you think that's just, it's more ingrained in the head and you've just got to mentally keep going?
it's definitely more mental. I mean, I always say the same thing. It's 80% mental, 20% physical in mountaineering. And I also say that anyone can do it. You know, climbing Everest. Like it's all about a mental game. Yes, you need to be, you know, physically fit, and you know, need to be able to, you know, have a strong cardiovascular system. But when it comes down to it, you know, the physical will get you up there, but it's the mental that's going to stop you at any point. You know, you have to have that mindset that no matter, you know, what's happening, how awful you feel, you've just got to keep going. And you know, some people have it, some people don't, and that's why, you know, people give up on the mountain. It's not because their legs are hurting or their back's hurting or, you know, their arms are aching. It's because mentally they're just not in the right space. And you know, Nims has this famous quote where it's, you know, when you're effed, you're only 45% effed. Which is true. Like, you have so much more left in the tank that the only way to reach into that is through mental determination and resilience, and it's not through physical. You know, your legs are burning, but you know, just conjure up the leg strength to go a bit further. No, you conjure up the mental strength to go further. And yeah, it's just, that is the whole game. So, and there's no way to train your mental strength really. It's I think it's something that you either naturally have or you don't have. And you know, this, yeah. So yeah.
Self-belief though, right? Is that, you know, we had a really good conversation with actually one of our ambassadors who's ex-SAS, Special Forces, and he related to a very similar sort of scenario when they were doing the Brecon Beacons, and they do this huge march, and you know, and it was that question again. It was, is it physical, is it mental? And he related to a point where, you know, you'd said before about Nims sort of standing in front of you, shouting at you and saying, look, you've got to get through this. And obviously, you know, people around you who can give you those sort of pep talks, or it's, you know, it's something that clicks or whatever it might be. And he related it actually to an incident where, you know, somebody that he'd sort of looked up to an awful lot was, he quit. He gave up. And him seeing this other person that he thought was so much, you know, had so much more willpower and was more disciplined and all these things, all of a sudden stepping down, and he was, you know, 200 meters behind him, was the thing that he said he needed. He just, it was that self-belief of, oh wow, I'm better, I can keep going and I can keep doing this. And he said after that point, it was almost like this, you know, you become numb to it, and he just kept going. And it was, and I imagine that the people you've got around you. So you mentioned Nims a few times, and obviously the other Sherpas and all these people that are part of this team. Do you think that's an integral sort of part of your self-belief and you being able to get through and get up these mountains? Because are you going with the same team to the other 3 summits?
No, I'm with a different team this year, but no, it's a huge part, is having that, like, that bonding and being able to, you know, egg each other on and motivate each other. And for some people it does, you know, huge things. You know, they need that sort of external motivation and people telling them to, you know, keep going, keep pushing, and that's where they thrive. And then other people, they, you know, they block that out, and they have that self-motivation, that drive to keep going, and whatever anyone else says kind of just goes over their head. So yeah, I think there's just like different types of personalities respond to it in different ways. And some people, you know, they need mothering, they need nurturing, and they need telling, like, you know, you actually have this, and you've just got to reach in and you know, unleash that lion and get up there. And I've seen so many different people on the mountains. You know, some people, you know, they're like latching onto their guide, and they're like, they need them to tell them every step of the way that they're going to be able to do this. And then I feel like I'm that kind of person that I'd rather just do it and like be independent. And, you know, I talk to myself in my head. And, you know, like if I'm running a race, for example, like people clapping and screaming, like keep going. And like, I sort of just block that out and I go into my zone. and that's where I like to be. But then there's other people who thrive off that and they start running faster and, you know, all this stuff. So yeah, I think it totally depends on the people, but it is overall, it's super important to have that team and to have that trust as well. And to know that, you know, people are there for you if you do need it. Because trust is a huge thing as well in the mountains. I mean, you're literally, everyone is like relying on everyone else. They may not need to rely on someone, but there may come a point and they never know that they suddenly someone's, you know, saving their life. So it's, yeah, there's this sort of subconscious connection that we all have, that, you know, we might need to save each other at some point. So we need to have this trust, or else there's going to be issues. So yeah, it's really important to be able to climb with the right people, and to have the right guides and, you know, the right support system.
So have you picked these people, or are they kind of picked you, or is it, how does it work? How do you get put in these teams? Is it just this mountaineering network that you all sort of go, look, I'm planning to do this, who else is planning to do it, and then slowly that team sort of merges? Or is it colleagues or friends of friends, or how does that work?
So you can take two routes. So you can go with like the expedition commercial companies. So for example, Elite Expert, who I used to climb with, and it's just whoever wants to do that expedition, they pay and they turn up, and that's your group. And then in terms of like Sherpa guides, you usually get allocated one. So I met my Sherpa guide, Gelje, on K2 Winter, and I knew instantly that I wanted to climb with him because we just clicked like that, and we were able to communicate, and we just knew each other so well. And so that was the person that I knew I wanted to climb with the whole time. So I climbed Everest with him, and I climbed Manaslu with him. And so, yeah, that's one route you can take. And then the other route is you can go sort of independent. You can create your own team, your own guides. You can, you know, do it however you want. You can incorporate Sherpas. You can go fully Western climbers, or, you know, you can do whatever path you choose, whatever you feel most comfortable with. But obviously to do that route, you have to be really experienced, because you have to sort of, you have to fend for yourself, and there's less dependency on Sherpa guides than there is in commercial routes and commercial guiding, where people are given a Sherpa, and that is, you know, the Sherpa pretty much takes them up the whole way, does everything for them. But yeah, I mean, it's also a learning curve as well. You have to go through that process to get to, you know, the experience level. So you have to begin somewhere. You can't just go climb an 8,000 on your own, because it's just not going to happen. But yeah.
So when are you back?
To Nepal?
No, when you're back home after your
back home. So I go to Nepal until June, and then I'm in Pakistan, and then either I'll go back home sort of end of summer, spend some time with my family, or I'll go straight back to Nepal. It all depends on what the situation is at the time, if I even go to Pakistan. But I mean, I love being out there. I prefer it to being in the UK. So any chance I can be away from home, I will. Just because, like, it's my whole life is out there now. All my friends are out there. Like my climbing community, I just feel at home in Nepal. So I'd rather, you know, spend some more time there while I can. Now I'm doing this climbing, this project, and then yeah. So I mean, last year I spent 8 months of the year in Nepal in total. So
wow.
It's pretty cool, yeah.
Well, it was a very selfish question, because I'd love to catch up with you on how that went. Obviously, once those three are boxed off, hopefully, and have a catch up and see where, you know, how that experience was, because I know that you've got things to do, and you've got to pack still. You were telling me you've got to pack and all these other things. So time is against you. But Adri, thoroughly appreciate you taking the time to come on here. I know that everything is a bit manic at the moment for you, and best of luck from all of us. I'm sure I'm speaking for our entire community at Human 24, and all the listeners will be gunning for you, and hopefully keeping tabs on you. Best places to keep tabs on what you're up to, is that social media?
Yeah, so Instagram is probably the best one, and then I've got a website as well, which I'm really bad at updating. So maybe don't look at the website, just stick to the Instagram. But yeah, I mean, thank you to you guys as well for the support. It's been really cool getting to learn about the whole science behind what you guys do as well, because it's so helpful for me in what I do. So yeah, no, thanks to you guys, and thanks for having me on the podcast as well.
Very welcome.
Really
Well, I'm going to dig into altitude science a little bit more. To be honest, you've sparked a couple of questions in amongst what you were saying there about the loss of appetite, the hydration.
Yeah,
So
there's so much to explore, so much, and no one's got it right yet. No one really knows what to do up there. So if someone could, get this perfect sort of, diet plan and hydration plan for up there, then that would be gold.
It definitely intrigues me. So I'm going to go away and dig into some of that. But thanks once again for joining us, and hopefully we'll have a catch up when you return. Best of luck with it all, and we will speak to you soon.
All right, thank you.